Alright, part 3 of the mental health series. Part 1 and 2, I covered, my reason for wanting to get this out and fucking start changing for the better, and the context of the capitalist system, how it shapes our psychology and behaviour and mental health. And I went through my childhood, adolescence, the instability of my life combined with the stability of a long-term relationship which started when I was 17. So yeah, beyond that, late teens, early 20s, started taking drugs. Now, I'd been drinking alcohol for years by that point. Started drinking not habitually, but socially, occasionally, as a very young teenager. But that got more frequent as I went further into my teens, and by my late teens, I was drinking regularly, and started taking drugs, as I say, late 80s, early 90s. Started with cannabis. First joint I ever had was in Chambers nightclub on an indie night on a Monday. Fucking, my mate gave us a joint, or half a joint, and it blew me away and I was pretty much hooked on cannabis after that. I loved it. So I started smoking cannabis quite regularly. And I didn't even smoke. I didn't smoke cigarettes. But I'd have a few when I was out on a weekend. But I didn't smoke it every day, I didn't smoke normal cigarettes every day. But cannabis, yeah, started smoking it quite regularly to get that high again, I enjoyed the high from cannabis, especially socially. It was a laugh. Used to fucking laugh our heads off when we're out of it on dope, as we call it, or blow. Yeah, a little bit further on, started taking acid. First acid I ever had was in the Blue Monkey. My mate gives a half of one, and what a fucking night that was. Like no other. Like nothing I'd ever experienced. Fucking hell. What was it? Eric, what's his name, from the Animals? He said that taking acid was like unscrewing your skull, taking your brain out, washing it under the tap, and then putting it back in and screwing it back up. Whoa. Fucking hell, everything looks different afterwards, But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that first acid, and I took acid pretty much every week for at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And sometimes at big events later on, like Glastonbury, I'd take it, across the whole weekend. But yeah, I got into speed as well. Shortly after I started taking acid, I started taking speed, and I'd combine speed with acid. I took a few ecstasy pills, didn't really get into it in a big way. I found them quite unreliable. Sometimes I'd buy an E, and there were 15 quid, which was a lot of money in 1990. 15 quid for something that might not fucking work. Never had that problem with acid. It worked every time, and it was cheaper. So I went for the acid, It was a better fucking hit, better buzz. For me, anyway. I loved it. I loved that fucking... I loved the hallucinating, you know what I mean? I loved the psychedelia aspect. I loved the way it fucked your brain up. Because I was a thinker. I'd always been a thinker. I mean, I didn't understand reality yet, but I'd always been a thinker, so acid just helped us think more deeply. Made us analyse things more closely, more detailed, I just got obsessed with fucking thinking, with analysing. I just wanted to know things more. Acid made us more curious about reality. And yeah. But the downside, fucking amazing nights, right? Amazing times, amazing experiences on drugs. But the downside started probably a couple of years after I started taking drugs, I had a couple of bad trips here and there, and I started to feel anxious. I had a bit of a panic attack on a bus in France when I was with my girlfriend. We'd been out the night before, got fucking shit-faced. We were late for an excursion on the coach, and everybody's on the coach and the bus driver's banging on the door to get us out of bed. And everybody cheered as we got on the bus because we were the last, but we were still fucking mortal. And I don't know, I had a bit of a freak out on the bus. It was the first time I'd ever experienced anything like that. And when you have your first little panicky situation, I think you get a bit wary of it, and it starts to play on your mind that it could happen again. So you're more likely to make it happen again in the future, you know. So yeah, panicky situations started then. And of course, if you're on acid and you get into a panicky situation, you can fucking really fucking flip. And that happened to me a few times. And it started to affect us when I wasn't even on drugs or drink. At work, in the factory where I worked, I'd have like little situations, you know, and when smoking cannabis socially, that might happen as well, you know. So the negative effects of drugs and alcohol started to come on. But I carried on, you know what I mean, for quite a few years. Past the mid-90s, I was still taking gear, going to see Oasis and all that. So I started with the raves and indie nights in nightclubs when I was around about the age of 20. But I took drugs for the next, well, I went to see Oasis in 96, and that was the last time I took acid. So for a good 6 years, I took acid quite frequently, you know. Even past the point of the downside, when the downside started, the panicky situations, the odd bad trip here and there, I was still taking it. Sometimes I'd have a bad trip, I'd fucking fight it out and wait for it to pass, then I'd take some more, hoping it'd be a good trip, which it normally was, you know. But yeah, positives and negatives of drug use. I was far from a junkie, but I was taking drugs quite regularly, and yeah, so things got a bit hit and missy by the mid-90s, before the mid-90s, but onwards certainly towards the mid-90s and late 90s, I was wanting to give up drugs, really. And I don't think my mental state was ever the same again, truth be told. I think the drug use kind of affected us long term, way beyond the point where I stopped taking drugs. And I struggled a bit, you know, in like situations at work and that. I'd have, I suppose you might call them intrusive thoughts. Just my brain running away with itself. Just anxiety, really. My brain running away with itself, you know, imagining all kinds of scary shit. Making us feel more anxious, just perpetuating the anxiety and exacerbating it. My heart rate starts, I start worrying about my heart. You know, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? And I didn't know what it was at the time, so that was making us more anxious, the fact I didn't know what was happening. But I never got medicated for that. I kind of just learned how to manage it, and I got on top of it as best I could, and I lived with that for a while. And then obviously things in my life were going on as well. I got married, I had kids, blah blah blah. But in terms of my mental health, My last Glastonbury actually was the worst situation I had in terms of panic. Coming back from Glastonbury in 2004, it was the last Glastonbury I ever went to, and I had to come back on my own this time, which I'd never done before. But I'd gone down on my own this time because the lads I went down with was a different set of lads to usual. The other lads had stopped going, but I wanted to keep going, so I went with another group of lads, and they went down the day before me. I couldn't go down that day, so I travelled down on my own, which meant coming back on my own. Well, coming back is very different to travelling down. Fucking hell, man. 5 days of absolute drug and alcohol abuse. I mean, I got back into drugs for a little while, and for that event I went a bit mad, and I barely slept in 5 nights, or 4, what was it, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 nights. Coming back, because I was absolutely knackered, beyond knackered. I drank a load of Red Bull, didn't I, to keep us awake. Fucking hell, the worst thing I could have done. I drank a good, like, massive bottle of Red Bull, and it just set off this panic. I was a mess, honestly. I was a mess. I could barely drive on the motorway. My feet was all over the pedals. I was slowing down, you know. I was a mess on the motorway. I had to pull into the services time and time again just to get my head together, just to phone somebody up and talk to somebody, map my head right, before I set off again and did another 50 miles to the next services. Fuck, it was hot. It was awful. What a horrendous experience. And that gave us the fear of driving on motorways for a while after that. I mean, as a taxi driver, that was dodgy, you know what I mean? Because if I'd get a big job and I had to go on a motorway, I'd be sweating. I'd be fucking sweating. And that lasted a while, you know. A good while. I'm alright today. I can drive motorways no bother. But fucking hell. I have to really focus. Even now I have to focus on a little bit on keeping that panic suppressed, because it can rise back up, you know. But yeah, for years I fucking had that kind of fear caused by that Glastonbury return journey. Jesus, man, it was awful, by the way. Awful. Imagine no sleep for 5 days or 4 nights, load of speed, load of fucking alcohol, cannabis, and then you're driving, what was it, 300 odd miles full of Red Bull early on the Monday morning. Oh, man, me fucking brain was frazzled to start with. It couldn't handle that fucking Red Bull, man. The Red Bull just tipped everything out. So yeah, panic. My 20s in the 90s was party time, you know what I mean? That was maximum enjoyment. That was me and my youth experiencing festivals, Oasis gigs, loads of indie gigs, nightclubs, drugs, fucking fantastic experiences. But the downside, probably inevitably, did haunt us for a good while. I paid for the party. I paid with panic, which is the title of this third part in the series. Party and Panic. It really was. I'd say probably, I don't know, 70% party, 30% panic. Was it worth it? Was it worth it? Damn right it was fucking worth it. I wouldn't swap that decade for anything. It fucking made my fucking life, that, man. But yeah, as I say, big negative came after that. And by the time, well, the year 2000 came around and my 30th birthday, things were changing again. Drugs. I'd stopped taking drugs. Yeah. And the next phase began, which I'll talk about in the next fucking episode. So I'll leave it there. Ta-ra.